Alright, I'm just trying some new things. So, just give me a heads up if something sounds weird or is too loud or if you can't hear something properly or whatever. Just let me know. So, what I'm going to do today, or actually do rather than this, is to work on the last remaining area, which is I spent a few minutes the last session just outlining every part of sort of the transition area here. So it's going to be a slow transition from the very leafy forest style over to more rocky, mountainous pine forest area here, which will be leading way more heavy into sort of wolves and bears and bandits and such, while the initial starting area will have the tree stumplings and the plantlings and more sort of friendly looking creatures. So what I did here was just slap on a cliff texture, a random one, and started making cubes to get a feeling for how it will look. Um, so yeah, this is the last remaining area before we come out here, and from here we will start dressing everything with props. So the entire area that we have on screen right now will need a lot of details. The particle effects, the static meshes, the small props, the outline with the larger cliffs, and all that. And then the enemy spawners, the minables. We will have way more mining nodes here rather than the trees and the herbs that we can find in this very beginning of the map. Um, this is sort of the backdrop for the demo area. When we load in everything here, like this, for the demo we might just add an invisible wall, most likely, right behind or right through this mountain, probably something like that. And it will lock off this area from here through the tree, pretty much. And when you walk closer to it, there might like sort of show some sort of texture so that you can see when you get close you'll actually be able to see the invisible wall, but not from afar, so you don't break immersion unnecessarily. So yeah, that's about it. Now I'm looking to create some sort of mountainous area, and I haven't given it too much thought yet, so might might have to just go bananas and try a few things out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I'll just assume that you're still here. Do you have any ideas of what would look good here? I think we could go either with this style, but it might look weird if we just make it sort of a sudden transition with that kind of mountain here and then go back to this and then once again over to the snowy mountains. Or we could just go with a bunch of larger versions of these, maybe. Or something like this, but without the snow. I don't know. Do you have any suggestions? Alright. Then I'll just start trying it out then. So what I'm gonna do now is simply try to scale it in a way um, to hide the cubes in a way that would make sense. Uh, and then slowly just removing every cube. And then since these objects are super big, the textures are gonna be looking kind of weird if you spawn next to it. Just to give you an idea of the size here. We have this beautiful wizard hatted mannequin. So this is what a single rock of this size is. So the way we can work around that when we have this kind of size on objects is to simply have the bigger ones centered in any cluster of rocks, cliffs, mountain ranges and such. Um, we just cluster everything, so we have the big one in the middle, and then we dress it with smaller versions of the same thing all around it. This way it will look sweeter and more detailed if you scale it up really, really highly. So yeah, I'm gonna continue doing this. And I'm also going to grab the rest of them here so we can use all of them. And it doesn't have to be sort of perfect right now, just a general likeness to the outline. And we also want to make sure we rotate and scale them a bit so it doesn't look exactly the same everywhere. That's good. It's good to hear that you have your priorities in in order. Yeah, well, that's good. I figured after doing this for 1.5 years, I figured I should just try to sort of stream while doing these things, the design stuff, because I don't really have to think too much. It's not like coding, which is I'm really not good at that part, so I have to focus a lot to get it right, which would make me completely unable to actually communicate with people. Um, but being alone, just sitting for months and months designing like the temple, the dark rooms with the gray stony area for 4 months straight, just sitting alone, it doesn't make sense to not try to get some people in a chat room to have someone to talk to. It's either that or going crazy, I suppose. we had a really lucky post today on Twitter as well. I think we received like 5,000 views now in a few hours, which is massive for us. Hopefully, we'll get some more wish lists, and the attention that we get, I hope to sort of be able to leverage it to get more exposure, because it's such a slow grind, and it's so much work just to get a few wishlist, because there's so many indie games out there and people are super talented. It's really crazy. So it's hard to get noticed. So I'm just gonna smooth out this area a little bit. I don't have a problem with anything that isn't grassy, but I think we're gonna handle that part a little bit later. Just make sure it's pretty evenly made right now. Um, yeah, I think this look will work. I think it's gonna be perfect. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about is to have this kind of size. So I'm gonna make sure that we just slowly scale it down while we dress it outwards. And make sure it's not perfectly symmetrical as well. And something we will do later, since I'm basically using the same rock over and over here. In this cluster here, we're using a single rock except for this one, which I use to sort of create a unique shape on what is basically the same thing in the rest of the area. So what I'm going to do at a later point is to I'm going to create a hierarchical instance static mesh, which is essentially it creates a bunch of instances, but in rather than using just instance static meshes, which will help you with the performance. It will, when you do that, it will actually not allow you to have any LODs. So you want to use the HISM, uh, because that will also allow you for some usage of the LODs. I'm going to reduce the size of this one by half. Create a sort of a little bit of a pocket here. So I'm not gonna get stuck on anything for too long right now because we're going to go through multiple iterations before this area is done. I could open a an early version of this area as well, but I don't know exactly where it is. It is a stupid looking picture though. The entire area is completely empty, and after going through a bunch of iterations, I just adding a new layer every time, it will eventually start looking much better. So the trick is simply just not to look for perfection at the first iteration, because you're just going to change it anyway at some point. So what I did with the in the last session was to just add these to get a general shape, and I did this in a few minutes just to get the idea. And then today I'm gonna start changing them to actual rocks. And then we might get some new ideas, and we're going to see if we want to act on those ideas or not. And if we like them enough, we're going to add them to this as well. And if not, we're just gonna keep going. Anyway, let's change the rotation. This makes it easier for me to move. And areas like this that has a lot of uneven ground is perfect for when you're adding cliffs like these, because you can just make sure they're in the ground and you'll have an uneven sort of shape of the mountain, making it look different from the other areas. Let's just save in case we crash. Don't want to crash. Alright, perfect. So I think this is looking pretty alright. This is something that I'm going to ask people to keep an eye out for as well on the playtesting, due to this thing will procedurally scatter a bunch of stuff like this, and it might collide with collision boxes and such, so we might have things hovering in the air if I made any large changes to the collision profiles. So all these spheres here might actually be uh, they might collide with the scattering of the props. So I want to prevent that from happening, of course, but every now and again I make changes to the collision profiles, and I might break every harvestable item and such. So I'm gonna make sure we do not accidentally keep them bugged out if that is the case. But just to be sure, we want to ask everyone who tests just to flag things like that if it happens. Oh, sorry. I should let you know what I'm doing. I am currently just deactivating a bunch of visible spheres because I know these are working, and I am currently feeling annoyed that there's so much red on the map when I look around. So I just felt like I had to deactivate it real fast. Anyway, back to work. So, yes, this might be a fun area to actually keep around. A way to walk around the cliff, maybe. Something like this. So from the player point of view, we're gonna be down here. I really think this size is definitely a good size. I did not like that one. Alright. Let's add some new shapes. General shapes. Such as these. Something like that maybe. And then we need to increase the size. It looks a little bit too flat here, so I'm probably going to add another one of these on the other side here. Spin it around and then increase the scaling somewhat. Maybe 9. Just gonna increase the size just a little bit. Move it closer to the border, just smoothen out the thing, just like that. And it is now a little bit chunkier. Good job us, right? So this might be a place where we actually want to hide a treasure or something like that. Let's increase the size of this one. Make sure it's has a good connection with the sort of the world border here, like that. Might want to hide a treasure chest on this side, just to reward the player for looking at different areas. What we could do here as well is to spin that one around a little bit and completely block off the way here, like so. And we have the perfect hiding spot for some juicy treasures. So I guess you're gonna have to look away now if you don't want to get any spoilers. Yeah, so I kind of like this. So what I usually do during this phase is that when I get a random idea like this, I just grab something, make it red, and I will scale it down. So someone will notice this giant red thing. Treasures is usually I usually make these into a sphere though. Oh yeah, there's so many Unity developers out there, and I've been really jealous of the amount of tutorials you can get as a Unity developer, because I actually don't know what I'm doing half the time, and looking for tutorials, even specifically for Unreal, there's still gonna be Unity developers showing up. So that's a big perk if you're working in Unity. Are you developing something of your own? So we should probably hide this at some point with a forest, or maybe some like a breakable cliff or something. I don't know. Oh shoot! I just remembered something. I promised to create that I should create a thing here. Um, so I was we have like a watchtower. I'm gonna see if I can find it. I'm gonna make this watchtower that we have is supposed to be breakable, and I completely forgot that I should make it. High platform, perfect. Alright, so I'm gonna make one of those. Oh yeah, I mean RTSs are quite a challenge, right? I feel like the longer break you take as well, it gets harder to come back into the same project, because even if you want to develop something, you're still gonna have a million ideas of what you might want to do. So I have the destructible fence here, destructible watchtower. Did you get far? So what I'm gonna do real quick is to look into if I can create one of these destructible watchtowers. So I think I need to, I don't really remember how to do it, so I think I might have to right click this one and create a destructible mesh. Yeah, that's the way. And then I might want to move this to the destructibles folder. Okay, so it turned out that I was supposed to work on the pine forest area, but I got sidetracked. Oh man, I love the Supreme Commander series. Uh, I spent way too many hours playing that game. The Forged Alliance one. I really loved spamming the fat boys. Those were the best. pretty weak for an experimental, but you can really use them or sort of spam them out and create very strategic positions. Yeah, the performance part is tricky. I mean, I've I've spent like a week straight, 3 or 4 times now, just optimizing different pieces of the game, just because it turned out to not be playable anymore, pretty much. Yeah, for sure. It's the performance is absolutely an issue. Uh, I'm manually handling a lot of things just to make sure that the game is playable. But I, I will say that even though Unity has a way larger community with more resources, Unreal Engine is easier to work with for performance issues, because you have a higher ceiling before you actually notice anything. You can spam a lot of objects and such, and you won't notice it in the same way like you would in Unity. So what I'm gonna do now is just grab this other um, whoa, this static mesh, or this destructible mesh. I'm just gonna grab this tab and drag it over to my other monitor and compare the information real fast, just to make sure it's not something that is too different. So I'm not gonna be able to see the chat for a brief moment here while I add the sort of the impulse scale, for example, how long this stuff that you break will be there for. Maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds. Um, let's just add 10 there. We need to add a timeout, or if we don't add this part, the debris timeout, the chunks that you break of the object will stay there forever. I want to enable debris. We need to add the depth so it actually breaks through. I am not sure if we need to do anything else there. So I'm going to add the mi wood. Oh, shoot. Like so. And then I'm going to click the magnifying glass just so I can grab the... Oh, it didn't work. There it is. So this is the sort of... The mesh is created in the way you see here, but you don't have any inwards faces. So when you break this, you won't see wood material on the broken pieces. Instead, if you break it through like one of the legs here, if you look into the leg, it will be gray with the world grid material. So I'm gonna try to change it. I'm not sure if this is actually going to work, but I guess we're gonna find out. This is something I've had trouble with for a long time, so I am hopefully solving it now. Great. And I don't think we need to activate any of those. And none of those. And now to the more fun part. We can decide how much this will be broken down. So how many pieces and such. So I guess we can start with 25, just see how it will be when we break it. Explode amount. So this is what's going to happen. If we add sort of a physical force now, it's going to break in this way. And then we can, of course, we can randomize the way it breaks. But I think this looks kind of alright, I suppose. But I'm not sure how the Genshin Impact version of this looks. Maybe a fewer pieces. Monkey Lord Cyberns are my favorite. Yeah, those are those are pretty cool. Totally agree. Unity's render pipeline makes it hard to track performance issues, so they pile up. Yeah, absolutely. I just made a few tutorials for fun in the Unity. I bought a few courses and just tried it after I started working with the Unreal engine, just to get, just to see if things were transferable. Unreal's better performance-wise. Absolutely, I think so too. The ceiling before you actually notice performance issues is way higher. And I don't think it's a problem if you're too familiar with Unity. I would just give it a few months, try it uh, like everything you can think of. Just follow a bunch of tutorials, try to maybe take a course, see what you think. If you have given it a few months, I think it would be a fair assessment. But if you haven't tried Unreal Engine yet, it's it's only based on your familiarity with Unity, I suppose. Okay, so we have the destructible platform, and we can try something that will probably look pretty funny, because this is not how it's going to work. Once we add it to a blueprint. So I think we can actually interact with it right now in any way. So if we just walk into it, it's gonna break, I think, or not. Oh, so we can't. Oh, that's a bummer. Let's see if we can do this then. Is this the destructible mesh, or? It is a destructible mesh, but it's not working. Do you use an older computer for developing so you can identify performance issues quicker, since most people have low specs? No, but I do play inside the editor with everything maxed out at all times, and I make sure that I actually cap the FPS in that setting, because when I play in the editor, you lose like 30% of your performance, and you have more things than just the FPS. But as you can see here, with everything on cinematic, I have an FPS between 100 and 120, but I have a top tier computer with really high specs, so I have to make sure that I stay at around twice the FPS that would be the minimum required. And this is all on the absolute max settings. So once you package the game, you'll get like 30 or 40% more performance, and everything will be higher resolution as well. And not playing in the editor makes a lot of difference. And then of course you can always scale back the graphical settings if you as a player try the game. But that is actually a very important thing that you're mentioning there. You should have the possibility to test your game with a lower sort of spec computer. So let's see if we can make this thing work. So this one should detect the attacks. See if it actually connects. Okay, so now it looks like it's connecting. Well, it's working, and the parts here are interactable. So this is something called chunks. The chunks are interactable with the character, and we can change the settings for sort of how large the chunks get to be before we can start to interact with them. So if they're too big or too small, we can set them to block or not block the player. But I think the lifetime looked alright. It didn't feel like it was too short lived. So this probably something we want to fix as well. We might want to check if the player is shooting an explosive arrow, we might want to break it immediately. See if we can do a rocket jump. Yay! I think this could be really fun to play around with. So the idea is to have one of these. Let's see if we can save now that it works, and then we might want to tweak, maybe add one more attack to break it or something like that. I'm not sure what would be the best right now, but I figure we could change this one with this. Like so. So what we have here is the a thing we just made with each arrow here is representing an enemy, and what we want to do is to just make sure the enemy spawns on the destructible thingy. So this is a blueprint that is connected to this thing, the treasure chest. So the idea is to be able to drop this blueprint, this blueprint, and it will spawn enemies when you get close. It creates an enemy camp with a cinematic and all that. So this collision box here is where everything will spawn. So I'm going to try to just snap object to view and play. So now we can see this in action. So there's nothing here, and this area where they will actually spawn will be much larger, but we notice that at this cylinder they will spawn when we walk in. And we have the enemies, but one didn't spawn for some reason, and it might be because there's a thing preventing this one from spawn if it's too close to the ground. Oh yeah, we can ignore all those. So let's try it again. See if it spawns properly now. So there's no one here. We walk into it, and now we have someone who spawned up there. So we don't want to handle these guys right now. So what I'm going to do is just disable them. You're not allowed to be here. So the idea is that the enemies or the camps should be able to have an archer as well, and they will be up on these, but we want to have them breakable so we can get them down on the ground. We also been discussing the possibility to have the player provided with fire arrows, so that you could shoot wood objects and have it burn down, which would be pretty cool. But for now, I think this is definitely good. Good enough. We have a destructible wall, so this one isn't breakable. If we start punching the wall here, it will never break. So what could be nice idea is to have so it doesn't work. But if we use an explosive arrow, it will be blown to smithereens. One idea would be to use the same kind of logic to have you break these in maybe 5 hits if you punch them, but 1 if you use an explosive arrow. Or something, I don't know. Maybe. Let's just take a quick look at the code. Okay, so this is more work. It takes the hit data, the hitting actor. So let's just let's just grab this code. I have no clue what to do with it, but let's find out. Can be attack, take damage. We don't need those. So take damage. We add this one there. So get this one, and if it's more than 0, it will explode. Grabs the destructible component. So it just skips the destroy component node here. Oh wow. Yeah, this is I need to find a way to check if it's valid. Maybe if we do it like this. It's not valid, we continue as usual, and if it is valid. It would be amazing if that worked, but I'm not so sure. I might just push that forward to later. So previously we had to shoot multiple explosive arrows, and now just one. And then we still have to punch a bunch of times. No, of course it's not reacting at all now. And that's if the cast fails, since we run it every time. So I think that should actually solve it. Are you working on any projects other than this one? If yes, how do you manage both? I do not. I only work on this one. but sometimes I just open a random project and try an idea out. Uh, but it's always gonna be related to Lorne. Okay, so now it's both of them works, but we can break it with one shot or punch it a few times. So that's cool. Um, I have taken a few breaks for maybe a week and just started making something for a friend or something like that, just to see if how much knowledge I have retained, because this is my first project and I've been working on it for about a year and a half. So I'm still learning, and to be perfectly honest, I don't know what I'm doing half the time. So I I'm still just trying to focus as much as possible on learning how to do all the things. And there's a never-ending stream of things we need to learn as indie developers, as you surely know, there's always more to learn. But I definitely have the urge to start new projects all the time. So if we just make the hits more than 4, so 5 hits now for the normal attacks, and it should break the watchtower. 3, 4, 5. So now it's actually worth using the explosive arrows to break it. Awesome. Alright, I'm happy we could get it working that quickly actually. So I guess I'm going to save that. And remove these. Like that. And go back to... Actually, I should probably save that. And go back to dressing the general area. We'll see how this looks when we're done. The thing is the foot of the mountain here. Yeah, for sure. I guess someone could be able to handle it, um, but I'd like to think that if you're experienced enough, you know that the best thing you could do for your project is probably just to focus on your project. And I mean, there are times where I've been spending months on a single area and I'm so freaking tired of it. If I start over, I'm just gonna have to go through the same process again, so I don't think it's going to be worth it either. So yeah, I think when I'm more experienced, I can probably back it up better, but I don't see how I could do a good job creating 2 projects, especially not since the scope of this game is to begin with is way too large for someone making their first project. But it's like a marathon. You don't have to actually train for it. You just have to not stop running. I don't think that's it. Let's see if we can grab another type of cliff. Actually, it might work. They look sort of like normal walls, pretty flat on the side. Going to spin it around a little bit. Maybe. No, I like this side better. So what I want to create here is sort of an ambush area where we can have some sort of trigger which spawns a bunch of enemies, maybe some cool visual effects and whatnot. And then we need, and if we want that, we need to have a pretty closed off entrance just to create some artificial bottlenecks. So during your break from the RTS creation, have you been doing anything else or just took a complete break from game development? Just gonna move these guys together like so. I think though that you definitely should either pick the RTS back up again or go with another project, because there are few things in the world that is as hard as game development, especially when you're solo, because you have to learn so many things. Um, but it's a great skill to have sort of develop the skill of learning, which you do need for game development, or solo game development rather. So I think it's a very good skill set to develop for anyone. Okay, so I kind of like this. We still need to dress the cliffs all the way around. So we might have to do that. I think that maybe we could use one of the path scatters actually that I've used previously around maybe this one. Oh, that one's too long. Oh, shoot. I'll just grab that one. Perfect. So I'm gonna do a quick magic trick here. So I'm using a tool to help me procedurally place things in different ways. So I'm using a max rotation of 360 degrees all the way down to 0, so they are randomized, and then with a random offset of the height. You can set the size of these to be more suiting for the thing I'm going to do. Then we can start deleting the spline points here. And what I want to do is to dress the sort of the foot of the mountain with smaller versions of the same cliff. So let's see. So from the player point of view, we're gonna have a thing looking like this. This is way too big, so I'm just gonna reduce it to that. Maybe change to 0. Oh, we need to change the spacing, so till we get something like that. That is perfect. Alright, so first of all, obviously we need to do something more than just this, so I'm going to add another spline point, and then we can bend this like that. And I reduce the spacing a little bit, so what I'm going to do now is to move this one around. And you see that there's an offset downwards as well. So the negative offset is going to have to be reduced quite a bit, I think. Or actually the positive one. So we have the location range here, and we are going to move it down between 0 and negative 50 maybe, like that. So it's much more even now, but it's going to be easier to work with. I'm going to change it a little bit further, like that maybe. And then all we have to do is move down the spline points into the ground. Make sure, so we click this one so we can see the outline of the object, and we see that it is below the ground all the way around. And once that is to our satisfaction, we can hold the Alt key and just create this worm looking thing around the foot of the mountain, but not all the way around. So we just want to make sort of thing like that, and then wrap it tightly into the mountain like so. This will help us create a layer of more detailed rocks. When you get close. So this is actually still a pretty large mountain or cliff. So it's a little bit less than twice the size of the player. So what we could do is just take this and make it a little bit higher up like that. So I think this is good. I think pretty happy with this. So I guess that we're gonna have to do it the same way around the other ones as well. I'm just gonna grab this one, and I might actually then remove that one, and then we just start wrapping the thing like this. And then we could even continue the spline in this direction and create sort of a baked in cliff into the terrain. I think we can make this look pretty good. So this one has to go, or actually we could probably just push it further in like this. Just like so. And this might actually be, so if we walk here, this rotation wasn't perfect for us, but it's alright. We could change the seed of the whole thing. Like that. And then just look through if we need to make any further changes somewhere else. So we have the bottom here, for example. We need to pull down so it's in the ground. Like that. And right, that's good. So what we're going to do at a later point is just reroute the roads a little bit, just to have this thing make sense. And we're gonna lead it through the holes that are left. So I'm just taking a quick break here, looking at all the notifications. Alright, sorry. Where are... There's the live stream. So we might wanna just generate a few more cliffs around here just to make it completely wrapped. And we might want to block off this area. I'm not sure that we necessarily have to do it, but I think that it might be a good idea to do it. So most likely you could, if you want to have some fun, you could be up here and paraglide all the way down. Alright. So I actually think this is starting to look pretty okay. There's something we have to look out for though is to not have any holes at the foot of the cliff, because that will be a surefire way to break immersion real fast. So I use this to bake it into the cliff like that, and I am thinking about if we want to do it on the other side as well. It kind of depends how it will look if we dress it up a bit, but it looks pretty natural at least. And it doesn't have to be realistic, since it's not a realistic game, it's a very stylized game, so we don't have to worry too much about that. And then there's always the rule of cool, I suppose. So we're gonna add some proper painting and such at a later point, but for now I'm just gonna remove the grass clipping from this. I wonder if I can use the runtime virtual textures on this spawner. I actually don't think it's gonna work. So I have the unnamed one here. Does it give us any... No, I'm actually not... I can't find any way to activate it. Alright. Oh well. So then the question would be, do we want to zone the player here? It will, if we do two sort of wings from this cliff, we can create a controlled path up to this hill here, and we could create some sort of enemy camp or some point of interest. Maybe a watchtower where you're allowed to climb pretty high up and you can see some more things from the world. Either that or not creating a wing on the other side and have it more open, but that would also make it more challenging to create an immersive experience just from having the player being able to walk wherever they want. I think I'm gonna try the double wing version actually. So we're just gonna bake it into the... We don't even have to have it very high up. Just high enough. So let's move these buggers away. So what I'm gonna do is just straighten the spline a little bit before doing this. I think we're gonna raise these a little bit, just a tad, something like that maybe. And then we grab the entire spline, push it down tiny bit, we move it in, we rotate it, and then we move the individual spline points out until we get the result we're happy with. So we could leave it like this to have some ramps available. That way we could give the player sort of different options of entering the enemy camp. Since you can insta-kill enemies with backstab, you could have them force them. You could provide them with the option to sneak up and sort of ambush the entire bandit camp one by one. I think this looks good. Then we can just continue the spline under the... like that. And then we grab another point, push it all the way over, maybe somewhere around here. Yep. So straight down. And then we make another spline point straight up. Like that. We can continue creating spline like this. We're just gonna quickly make a few points so we can just move them down. Then we grab the entire thing, move it up, and just reset it to update the static meshes. Yep, they are indeed, however, they are not as small as they might look. So even if you can mantle, it's gonna be hard to do it if it's like a 3 or 4 meter high object. So now we actually created a ramp here, so we might want to improve a little bit on the general look here. So the first piece of the puzzle would most likely be to smooth out the ramp looking thing here, like so, and then just create... We're gonna manually paint these later, so even though it's not gonna be grass everywhere, I'm gonna start off by having the grass like so, just to make it look pretty even when we start. So I'm just smoothing the terrain right now. I wonder... Oh, Alright, so now we have a way to go up there, and we can walk around here to get it as well. So I'm gonna fix that later. Then if we look into the back side of this cliff, we might wanna rotate these spline points just a little bit to get a smoother transition. So I'm adding a new spline point and I'm rotating the cliffs backwards just a little bit, and I'm gonna lower them just a little bit. Well, I think it looks pretty smooth for a first draft at least. Like that, and we should be able to climb up further here, which forces us to actually look for places to get stuck in. However, I try to always design the core of the cliffs as a sort of a blob, a cohesive blob that you can't walk into and get stuck, but there might be things like this. Since we just rotated this with a spline, we don't have full control over it. So that's actually something I will try to fix now by rotating these. And I can see that too much of the spline is rotating already, so I'm not gonna do that. And I will rather take one of the single instance static meshes, and I'm going to reduce it quite a bit. And just increase the size to maybe 0.5, like that. We rotate it just a little bit, make it lean backwards, and push it down into the terrain, like that. And I think we just have to inspect the crevices here to make sure there aren't any obvious places to get stuck, and if there are none, we can move back, have a 360 look. We're still gonna need more details around here, but I think it's going to be really good to have as a ambush point. So let's just repaint the roads a little bit. We're gonna have to do it again, but I just want to do it real quick to get an idea of the positioning. Something like that. Yeah, that's not natural enough, so we wanna make it not as tight of a turn. Maybe like that, I think. Yeah. That's better. Great. And then we're going to do the same thing with the spline, like we did here. Just add it to the other ones. This has quite a few spline points, so I'm just gonna start nuking them. Like so. Move it up to just update it, and then move it into position. So the first thing I want to do is just simply wrap it, and then I'm going to start putting more and more details every time we make iterations on the area. We will add more details, and after a while it's going to be like the tiny issues I have right now with the design is gonna disappear over time. So I'm not gonna stop for too long on anything, just to create a fluid development where if we face too much resistance, we're just gonna move on pretty much immediately and then go back, try to fix it another time. Something like that. So if there are any Unreal developers in here, I actually just a minute ago made a blueprint tutorial for how to create a weather system that is really performant and quick to make. It won't take you more than 15 minutes to create it from scratch. So you can find it under the recent live streams, I think. This is just me trying out some stuff. I don't think this is gonna stick, but I'll definitely look into creating something on the backside here. So might actually just remove the pieces on the front. Whoa. Like this. And since I'm using a new one, I could probably just increase the size a little bit. So let's not double the size. Maybe 30. And then create like maybe 3 instances with a higher spacing, 800 spacing maybe. Just to create a little bit of variance in what you see. So we might want to bake these together, maybe, but I'm not sure if that's the way to go. No, actually we have a long piece on the left side here, so I want to offer the player more options, because if we close off too much of the area with the terrain blocker here, and if we have a long block here of with a cliff, not as likely as the play that the player will go here, and we want to promote exploration, but we don't want to prevent it too much. And that's we have to make it feel like it is exploration, is what I'm trying to say. But we don't want to make it sort of too linear and lead the player for too long of a period. Since we already created this wall here, we're kind of making a piece of it linear already. think I'm going to pause here actually. We got a lot done today. Are you still here? No, alright. Well, I'm very glad we got so much done. So, what I'm going to do now is to push these changes. Oh, well, great. Then I'm going to provide you with a treat before I push the updates. I created a watchtower, destructible watchtower. So the idea the idea behind this is that you could punch it a bunch of times and break it, or you could shoot it with a bomb, explosive arrow, and destroy it immediately. So there's actually two code channels checking for the actual thing we're using. And if we're using a explosive arrow, it will break immediately. And if not, you're gonna have to punch it a bunch of times. So this could also be used, the same technique could be used for, let's say, fire arrows or any abilities that we develop in the future. So I think it's pretty cool. So this is the most boring part of the development, keeping your project safe. So now we're just gonna have to remember everything we did. Which luckily when we work on environments is usually not so much. But we made a few changes here and there. So all the Niagara effects, we removed visibility of tick control component. So we're going to submit that change. And then we're going to do this a few more times. Now that I have a bunch of downtime, and any engagement with the streams or the videos, like subscription, likes, shares, all those things help the visibility for the channel and will greatly help our reach as well. So if you enjoy the stream, or if you want to get it recommended in future, just drop a like and it will most likely pop up in your feed at some point. And for the platform, we created a destructible platform with both explosive arrow and multiple hits. That is a very poor commit name, but Then again, I'm a very poor developer. Did I make any changes today? Why not? So I'm using GitHub desktop if anyone is wondering. I wouldn't recommend using GitHub for game development, to be perfectly honest, since it's not used to be able to handle the large file sizes. So it can be quite a pain to set it up. I had a lot of issues with it until I finally got it running, but it is good once it works. Remove the tick control visibility. And then we have, I think, the last push. Since the world map is quite large and we have it in a single file, I'm not pushing that more than once every week or once every other week. So I'm not gonna push the Lorne landscape now. It is a bit risky, since if we don't push it and the game would be corrupted, and when we restore it, we will lose all the changes made to the landscape, like all the painting and all the sculpting. However, if we do it semi often, it's gonna be worth the risk, I think. Added a large portion of the pine forest cliff border, and that was the last one. So I'm just gonna push this to the change log on the Discord server, and call it a night. So thanks to everyone who joined up and kept me busy with something more than just plonking down cliffs the whole night. So see you next time.